When one looks upon the city of New Orleans from the north, south, east, or west, it dominates the skyline. It leaves a lasting impression on the mind from high above or far below. It's been called everything from a monument to man's imagination to the most controversial state project in Louisiana history. It is the Louisiana Superdome. And tonight, we take a look back at its first 10 years. In just a decade, the Superdome has become as big a part of New Orleans as the French Quarter and the Mississippi River. To understand the full impact of the Dome, not only as a multipurpose stadium, convention, and entertainment center, but as a catalyst for a resurgent downtown, one must go back 20 years to when New Orleans looked a far cry different than today. Downtown was in decay. The city economy needed a boost, and the city was looking for a professional sports franchise to push New Orleans into the big leagues. The Saints were born in 1967, but long before the team played its first game in Tulane Stadium, a local businessman and part-time visionary was drumming up support for a domed stadium. Dave Dixon saw the Dome project in New Orleans as a quest. Dixon envisioned more than just a place for the Saints to play. He saw instead a Superdome which would house football, baseball, and basketball, as well as double as a home for giant entertainment events and mega conventions.
The Superdome is everything that I wanted it to be and more from a physical standpoint. And as a matter of fact, I never dreamed that the building could be truly a beautiful building. This great Japanese sculptor was in town about 3 or 4 years ago, Deguchi, and he said, "I'm going to retire after seeing this building." He says, I could never match that. The exterior of it is so beautiful. And if you think about it, around the country, think of every dome stadium you know of. There's not a handsome dome stadium in the world except this one. This is the only beautiful dome.
But Dixon's Dome quickly became an ugly duckling politically. He had to fight long and hard to get the complex built. His first discussions about a domed stadium came with then Mayor Chep Morrison in the early 60s, even before the Houston Astrodome was built. Later, his then wild idea seemed workable to an unlikely proponent.
I met with Governor McKesson, a great governor in my judgment, and I just barely knew him then, and described to him the potential for such a building, the multi-usability of it. And to my utter astonishment, after 20 minutes of silence while I was talking, he suddenly jumps up and he says, "That would be the greatest building in history. By golly, we'll build it."
Former Mayor Moon Landrieu headed up the Dome Stadium Commission and was a prime mover in the fight to build the arena. Landrieu saw the project as more than just a sports and entertainment palace.
I think we always saw it as an activator, catalyst for downtown New Orleans. My heart was set on building a stadium downtown. As it was first envisioned, the stadium was to be a suburban stadium. That was the way it was contemplated. That's the way the Astrodome was. But I just knew that the construction of a stadium downtown would be of utmost importance to the city. I had seen what other cities were doing, and downtowns had always been the place where the activities were. But beginning in 1950s, things began to sprawl to the suburbs, and it was just a natural for us.
Construction began in August of 1971. For close to 4 years, New Orleanians would rubberneck their way down the expressways encircling the 52-acre site, trying to conjure up a mental picture of the finished product. As the 20,000 tons of steel and 550,000 square feet of skin was molded into place, it began to look like a piece of the 21st century had been magically transported into a former railroad freight yard in the middle of downtown. Anxious onlookers could hardly wait for the wonders inside. That wait ended on August 3rd, 1975. New Orleans took a super step into the future, and those who made the project happen breathed an enormous sigh of relief. Welcome to tomorrow.
Thank God. I think everybody just was awestruck by the facility. It is a magnificent building, and Curtis and Davis did a beautiful job on design of it.
The opening ceremonies gave New Orleanians a chance to finally view up close what had been promised for so long. All of the bands, speeches, and hoopla were overshadowed by the building itself. Most spent the day in awe of the sheer size of the dome, staring upwards to the roof 273 feet in the air, or at the 6 giant screens on the gondola, each 26 feet by 22 feet.
Well, 75, of course, the very start, there was a tremendous amount of excitement over the opening of the new building. People anxious to see this big animal and see what it really looked like and experience it for themselves. And that through 10 years still holds true.
Bill Curl has been public relations director for the Superdome since 1977. He has seen firsthand the transformation of the dome from a novelty to an integral part of the nation's sports and entertainment scene. First and foremost, the Superdome is the home of the New Orleans Saints. On August 9, 1975, the Saints played the first football game ever in the Dome, losing to the Houston Oilers 13-7. Saints head coach Bum Phillips was then the head coach of the Oilers, and he remembers his initial reaction to the building.
Great big place. Take a whole lot of hay. The Superdome has got probably a better fan viewing. It seemed like to me it's closer to the field and you can get more people in it, and I think it's noisier. Maybe it's because the fans holler louder, but it deafens you sometimes.
Since that first ever game with the Oilers, the Saints have played 102 home games in the Dome, with many of those being sellouts. Recently, new owner Tom Benson and his partners reached agreement on a new 21-year lease with the Superdome. Team president Eddie Jones is thrilled with that agreement, and he knows the National Football League feels the same way.
The NFL thinks that this is one of the finest, if not the finest, facilities in our league or in our country. It's evidenced by the many times that we've had the Super Bowl here, and by the fact that we have the bowl now twice in the next 5 years.
The Super Bowl is without question the premier event in sports, and one of the most coveted prizes for any city with a stadium big enough to hold 60,000 people or more. New Orleans has hosted 5 Super Bowls. The first in the Dome came in January of 1978 when Dallas defeated Denver for the NFL title. Oakland won its second Super Bowl and its last before moving to Los Angeles in the Dome's second NFL championship game in January of 1981. No other city in the nation can boast as many Super Bowls as can New Orleans, and Dome officials are elated that the game will return to the Crescent City in January of 1986 and 1990. College football has played a big part in the Dome's history. Tulane moved from its on-campus stadium to the Dome in 1975. And according to Bill Curl, who once served as sports information director for the Wave, the Dome is a vital link to the future for the Greenie program.
To Tulane, it can become the most effective recruiting tool of any major college. Right now, it is a good recruiting tool, and they use it well. With established success over a period of time, Tulane, looming as a major power, can have a stroke that no other major college can match up with.
The Sugar Bowl has enjoyed great national acclaim since moving to the Superdome in 1975. The inaugural game came on December 31st, when Richard Todd quarterbacked Alabama to win over Joe Paterno's Penn State Nittany Lions. Bear Bryant would later win one of his national championships in the Dome when he again beat Paterno and Penn State 6-0 in the 1979 game. Georgia and Herschel Walker won the national championship with a win over Notre Dame in the 1981 game. Dan Marino gave New Orleans and the nation a thrill in 1982 when he pulled off a miracle pass in the final minute to give Pitt a Sugar Bowl win. And the 1983 Sugar Bowl showcased Kurt Warner as Penn State beat Georgia and Joe Paterno picked up his first undisputed national championship. A national championship of a different sort was won in the Superdome in the spring of 1982. After hosting the NCAA Midwest Regional Basketball Tournament in 1981, the Superdome and New Orleans welcomed what has become the collegiate version of the Super Bowl. The NCAA Final Four brought 61,000 fans into the Dome for both the Saturday afternoon semifinals and the Monday night championship game between Georgetown and North Carolina. Future NBA stars Sam Perkins, Michael Jordan, and James Worthy pulled off some last-minute heroics to beat the Hoyas, led by Patrick Ewing. Competition for the Final Four has become as fierce as that for a Super Bowl. The Dome will once again play host to the NCAA championships in the spring of 1987.